So welcome everyone to another webinar by YaSemoseuropeos. My name is Íñigo Cruz, and I will be your guide in this fantastic tour through the new competition of lawyer linguists. That, for a small surprise, is a bit different from what we have seen in the previous lawyer linguist competition. That is happening with their exams in mid-June, so more or less month and 1-2 weeks from now on. So this is going to be a different competition. So first of all, bear in mind that if you are entitled to participate in the other lawyer linguist competition, and also you can participate on this one because you have the law degrees and the requirements asked in the competition, that's perfectly fine. You are not excluded to participate in one on the other. No, you can participate in both competitions. This is important to bear in mind. The only exclusion is that within these two competitions, you can only participate on on one language each. So hope this is clear. And we have a good starting point here in the webinar. As usual, at the end, we will open mics and you will be free to ask whatever you want in relation to this competition or any other question that you may have. In the meantime, let's see if I've managed to foresee many of your questions and the points that you are feeling dubious on this new competition. How we are going to proceed? Very simple, very easy. First of all, a short overview of the competition and the application, the procedures for the application. Then we will see the test, this translation and reasoning test, and then some ideas, some resources on where to check or what we can use to prepare ourselves for this competition. Well, oops, there it goes. So bear in mind that for this webinar and for the information we are sharing with you, we are not only taking advantage of the notice of competition, but it contains a lot of useful information, but also we dig in the past of other competitions, like the Lawyer Linguist from 2022, from EU law competition, translation competition, and yeah, we should say also the latest Lawyer Linguist competition. But remember that it has different tests. So that's the main thing that we need to bear in mind, how the evaluation process is going to change. And I'll try to mark these differences during today's webinar. So first of all, important to when we are facing this competition is the fact that we have plenty of spots. Sense for some languages like Czech, 20 spots, seats. For Danish, 15. I mean, looks a small number, but fine. I mean, with all due respect, Denmark has not so many citizens, so there are not so many lawyers or people familiar with Danish law or in Danish language. So meaning that I think it's fair number to work in the European Court. So we see the biggest one is Italian. Also take into account the number of people that come from the country, and in France, French 20. Probably French is proportionally the trickiest one because we will see that it's not only France but also Belgium that and Luxembourg that are accepted. So that could be it. In any case, it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, principle potentially there could be many candidates. True, I acknowledge that, but the reality is that not so many candidates prepare themselves well. And that's the big difference. I mean, even in a competition that looks small by the number of potential seats, there won't be so many real candidates at the end. You need to bear in mind, first of all, that many of the candidates will fail the reasoning test. Usually, following EPSO statistics is between 25%, 33, even up to 50% of the candidates could fail the reasoning test. So I'm thinking here of people who don't prepare themselves for the reasoning test, people who are completely unfamiliar with it, they get too nervous the day of the exam, they freak out. And remember that for the reasoning test, freaking out is your worst enemy. That's one thing. And then some other that maybe the reasoning they do right because they are used to for some reasons, but still the translation part they haven't prepared themselves. They haven't. I wouldn't say study because it's not a question of study, but practice. Get used to what they are supposed to do. So meaning that Yeah, right from the beginning, more than half of the candidates are not real candidates. So don't be afraid of the numbers that you will see when they publish number of candidates who have registered for this competition. You don't care. You care about yourselves because if you do right, if you do your best, your chance of being on that reserve list, being on among those 20, 25, or 15, 30 candidates are quite high. So it's a question of how you perform, of not making mistakes, your own mistakes. So don't look to others, look to yourselves. Be sure that you do right your part. So as we say there, don't make mistakes and you will be in the reserve list. That's the key part. So important to remember, all of you will be invited to the exam. In the past, there was an eligibility process, some check-ins and so on. Nowadays, it's not longer the case. And you just register and you go to the competition and you will get the invitation. That's automatic. Also remember that the competition will be done at home in your personal computer. You can do it at home on your office if you can do it like that, or somewhere else, provided it follows the rules that are given by EPSO. That's perfectly fine. Consider all things considered based on what we have seen for other competitions, lawyer linguists, the previous lawyer linguists, or translators and others. We think that your exams will take place in 2 different days. So one day will be the reasoning and the first translation. Second day will be the second translation. To be confirmed by EPSO, of course, but be ready for booking two mornings of your life for taking the exam. So don't get surprised if this happens at the end. I mean, if it could be one single day, but it will be a bit too long from what we have seen. And also, I'm afraid that you won't get any results until the very end of the competition. Remember that you need to be very patient with this. For the rest, the good news is that despite being an 87, you don't need professional experience. I mean, sorry, I just got graduated. I started to work last month. Fine. I mean, for this competition, it's fine. You just need a university degree. That's the important thing. And for the languages, do I need to prove that I got the ALF or the proficiency or any other degree in languages? No, no need. It will be tested or it will be checked through the test. So on that part, I think this is quite a fair competition. It's quite easy on that perspective regarding the requirements, although the test won't be easy. But at first, at least the part of the paperwork, let's call it like that. That's fine. That's good. Um, hope this encouraged you to go through the competition. Remember that the level of language is estimate, so meaning that when they say language one level C2 native speaker and language 2 and 3 C1, yeah, I mean I don't have any degree in that language, not a problem. If you are capable of working on that language, that should be fine. At technical level, legal level, that's the only caveat. So, but I've been working in French for many years, but I'm a Spanish lawyer. No, let's say I'm a French lawyer that I've been working in Spanish for many years, and I think I have a good knowledge of Spanish law and Spanish terminology. Although I never got any degree testing my level of language, that's perfectly fine. You should be fine for this competition, for instance. Okay, but what else do we have? Important the criteria of the competition we see here. So the classics being national of member state, obligation regarding the military service. Yeah, I know, but for some of you, what the hell? But I don't have a military service in my country. Maybe not in your country, but in several other member states, it's still an obligation. So that should be fulfilled. And any other character requirements required for this competition. The 3 languages. It's clear the legal reasoning for the 3 languages. So I'm not going to insist on that, but I just took it from the notice of competition to remind you that all the information is there. The rules of the game, how it's going to be played, this game, it's there. So very, very important that you bear that in mind. And after following us on this webinar, download the presentation. It will be accessible on our blog for sure, but as well read the notice of competition. Probably it's the first time I say it today, but I will keep insisting for the whole webinar that please read it, because I mean, if you read the whole of it and it's not a longer document, 17 pages, I think you can do that. I mean, you will have a great advantage compared to other candidates. Many candidates don't read anything of the notice of competition. They just do the clicks on the web, and they are losing an incredible good opportunity to have a better knowledge and be more familiar with the things that they can expect ahead of them. So don't make that mistake and read the notice. Regarding the languages, as mentioned before, the case of the language one is selected according to the competition you are, the profile within the competition that you are selecting, whether it's French, Czech, Danish, Estonian, Finnish, Latvian, Swedish, or Italian. The caveat is that there's a limitation of the options that you can choose. Meaning, if you check between the Czech, Danish, Estonian, Finnish, Latvian, Swedish, and Italian, then the second language is French or French, language two. And for the language three, depends, they change a little bit. They have selected these combinations according to the needs of the court. So this is not a random selection. This is not something that they just came with the idea one morning. No, it's been selected because they need people with those profiles. It was some limits, some restraints for your capacity to apply, maybe, but I mean, it's a position for the institutions, and it's what they need. They choose. We have to deal with it. In the case of you have selected French, then second language, it's not going to be French. It can be Dutch, English, German, Greek, Italian, Polish, or Spanish, and then the third language is fully open. You select which one. Also remember, in case you are not familiar with European institutions, that the court usually works in French. So a good knowledge of French is kind of compulsory. So that's why also it makes sense to have language two, French. So it's not a random voice from the institutions. Okay. Important, a quite important thing regarding the working experience and the qualifications. In principle, with your law degree, that should be fine. And we will see a bit more detail on that. But it's a law degree of 4 years, not 3, 4 years. So what happens if you got your degree of 3 years in law? Fine, you need a 1 year work experience. This is clearly marked. They also specify in which areas you need the working experience, legal translation, drafting legal text, legal experience. So be sure that if your degree is 3 years and you present your working 1 year of working experience, be sure that the working experience match these elements. Because imagine that you got working experience just selling cards. What is a good job, but it's not within the parameters provided by the notice. So probably they won't accept that experience. So, but if you've been working in a law firm doing legal translation, just specify, be sure that you have the evidence for that in case you have a 3 years degree. With a 4 years degree, that's it. Fine, super. Be sure that you have the degree and you have the information related in case it's not clear in one of the documents that it's a 4 years degree you can prove somehow. That's the only thing. And also the important thing, and that's why I like it in this competition, that you have some margin of maneuver. Imagine that you are still studying, that you haven't done your degree yet, finalized your degree yet. Still, it's marked in the notice. And again, this is like a screenshot from the notice. They say, in case where diploma is sufficient to meet the eligibility requirements for a given competition, such diploma must be awarded no later than 1st of October 2025. As we are doing this webinar now, this is 8th of May. So meaning that you are getting your degree in July, for instance, that's perfectly fine. That's super. If you are getting your degree in September for any reason, because you have some exams left, that's also possible. But if it's 2nd of October, no, you are not. You are out. It's a simple rule. Hope this is clear and opens a window of opportunity or enlarge the window of opportunity for many of you. Hope so. Regarding the qualification, the academic qualification, the titles, the degrees. So important, read the notice carefully because some minor aspects have changed compared to the previous lawyer linguist competition. So you cannot say, oh, in the previous one, I was entitled. In this one, automatically I am. Mm, no, don't say that. Read it, just check it. We try to put all the information here again, but go to the notice. So you see that you need for the Czech competition, the Czech law in Danish, the same, Estonian law. Although there are some other languages or profiles that are a bit tricky because for Finnish, remember, well, I think that if you're from Finland or you are familiar with the Finnish system, you know better than me, but remember in Finland, they have two official languages, Finnish and Swedish, and you can do your studies in Finnish or Swedish. In this case, they ask for Finnish language because you can have a degree in Finnish law, but done in Swedish. That's why. So be careful with this small criteria that you can miss. Or for the French, you see what I mentioned right before. So French studies in French, but in Belgium or Luxembourg is law, and they're taking the French language. So I'm from Luxembourg. I have studied in French. Perfect. I'm from Belgium. I'm from Bologna, and I have studied in French. Perfectly fine as well. Okay, so this is important. This is important to bear that in mind. And in the local language, in the local law with French language, this is important. And they also provide all the information. By the way, it's in French in the original paragraph in the notice, so I think it makes sense to have that explanation in French, despite the language. That is the whole notice. Only that part changed. But if you are applying for French, that shouldn't be a problem. Okay. And for Italian, Latvian, and Swedish, by the way, sorry for the typo. In Italian, it's 30, not 20. So Italian law, it's quite simple. Latvian, and in the case of Swedish, just the other side of the coin. In the case because it can be Swedish or Finnish law, but in the Swedish language. Simple, not big deal. Um, so, and again, if you got it's a 4 years degree, you got it. If it's a 3 years degree, you need 1 year of working experience, no more than that. And then, how is going to be the evaluation of the competition? How is going to be the whole process? Rather simple. So this time they even overcomplicate, but there's a caveat, and I will say it at the end. Reasoning, business as usual, verbal, numerical, and abstract. 20 questions of verbal, 10 questions of numerical, 10 questions of abstract, and 1 point each. Classic, very classic, not big deal. Then you have the translation from language 2 to language 1 of a legal text, 80 points, minimum threshold 40 points. And then the translation, the review of the translation, again, 80 points, minimum threshold 40 points. The interesting part is that after doing the reasoning, they will do the legibility. So you pass the reasoning, you get 20 points over 40 in the reasoning. That's fine. They will check that you got your studies in law, in the language that you have declared for the competition, and Italian candidate, Italian law degree, Italian language, fine, goes. Okay, and that's it. They will do the eligibility. That's why doing the eligibility at this stage of the competition means that it can take a bit of time. That will depend on the final number of candidates. We're saying if we are talking about in total with all the 8 languages combined, few thousands candidates, let's say 3,000 candidates, and assuming that 50-60% of them they passed the reasoning, it's still 1,500. Even think about 2,000 if we got more than 3,000 initial candidates. So that's a big number. And even if the eligibility is easy to check, it will take time. Okay, so that means that the whole process of evaluation process can be longer than expected. EPSO is committed to do the whole competition in 6 months. I seriously doubt that your competition will last only 6 months. I think the results will come later. It's our view, considering the numbers and the usual rhythm of work, speed of work by EPSO. Maybe tomorrow EPSO has implemented some other solutions to do this eligibility faster, and that will be perfectly fine. But in the meantime, we need to assume that it's classic procedure, so it will take time. And then the correction of the review of the first translation, that if you pass, you will get the review of the second one. So meaning that we are talking about hundreds of exercises. It's not one or two, it's potentially hundreds. It will take time to the reviews because there are not so many available. So with all these considerations, not easy to do it in a short period of time. If we are talking of few hundreds candidates in total, yes, I mean that shouldn't be a problem. But the moment you are a couple of thousands, that's going to take a long time. On the other hand, it's quite fair for all of you because you need to pass the reasoning, eligibility, and then the translations are assessed to all of you. That's good. Remember that the assessment of these translations will be done by human beings. It's not machine done, not machine translated. So there are the experts from the court, legal experts from the institutions who will do the review of your text. So in all, it needs time. And then with the scoring that you have marked, provided you have passed both translations, they will do the ranking. So up to 160 points. So I got 60 and 60. So you got 120. Is that a good number? Low number? We don't know. That will depend on the final number of candidates and the difficulty of the text. So it's very difficult to foresee what's going to be the mark for the threshold. But what we know is that I got 39 on the first translation, you're out. No way. Or I got 80 in the first translation and I got 39 in the second, you're out. They don't compensate. They don't mitigate the results. They don't transfer points. You need at least 40 on each of them to still be in the competition. Hope this is clear. I mean, from that perspective, and in this time, it's quite easy to follow the process because in the previous lawyer linguist, I mean, it was a bit of a messy system combining different results, scoring and weights on the results. In your case, straightforward. So just to write the translations and don't make a big blunder in the reasoning. 20 out of 40, that's perfectly fine. I got 40 out of 40. Excellent, super, you're great, but it doesn't matter. 40 of 20 out of 40 for the reasoning. And for the translations, the maximum score possible. If you don't believe me, you just can go to the notice and check and challenge me. I mean, that's perfectly fine. I mean, always check the notice. It's not a question of believing us, it's a question of believing the notice. Then from the notice, we move to the application. Remember that now the system has changed and you need to apply through the single candidate portal. Maybe some of you have followed previous webinars, you're familiar with it. Maybe if you are new and you're coming to our webinar for the first time, you will say, what the hell is the single candidate portal? I mean, and I don't know what you're talking about. But the fact is that EPSO got rid this year of the old portal, or EPSO portal, that the old one is still valid for contractual agents, for the old competitions in motion, but for the new ones, it's only through the single candidate portal. If you download the presentation, you can always click on the single candidate portal link that we put there. It will get you to the explanations provided by EPSO. It's quite well explained. I mean, they have done good guidelines on how to fill in the data and how to use the portal. And the usability of this new portal, I think, is been improved compared to the old one. So it doesn't require to be a genius to manage it. Of course, give yourself time if you is the first time that you apply and you use it, but I mean, for the rest, it should be fine. It has strong advantages. It keeps you your data, and you can just automatically transfer the information from your profile into your competition file, so you don't need to fill in it again like in the past. Especially for working experience, yeah, I know in your competition it's not required, but as a reference for education and for anything. So it's already in the system, you just transfer it. So it's perfectly well explained. Follow these instructions. I hope this is clear. I mean, this is another capture from the application, from the portal. You see that eligibility, you start with that part, clicking that you're eligible, that you fulfill all the criteria, click all the items. Otherwise, the system won't allow you. By the way, it also provides you an excellent feature that it's possible to reopen your applications what you have filled in it and submit it, because it's going you have to submit it, but still the system allows you to access to it to correct any information, and it will take the information that is finally drafted or written on your application when the time close for the registering period. So overall, it's a good advantage, but just be careful in case you decide to reopen your application and change something, not to leave it undone. Or oh, I was thinking how to redraft this. I will leave it empty, and I will do it later. And then the time goes and the application period closes, and it's still empty. So just be careful about this possibility. But overall, it's a great improvement. Remember that as if you got the degree as required by the notice, you don't need to prove any working experience. So you are not obliged to put the working experience. If you decide to put your working experience, you will have to provide documents to evidence of supporting that working experience. That's the condition. That's perfectly fine if you don't do it in this one, because you are not required with a 4 years degree. If it's a 3 years degree, yeah, absolutely you have to. Okay, so you see, quite simple. I mean, I really like the new portal. I think they have done a great job on that part. I mean, when something is right, we should acknowledge. And then the timeline, the time of the competition. I mentioned before that you need to be patient. So important that you have until the 20th of May for the application period. So 20 days as we speak now. You can upload the document right after. Not big deal. There is the deadline of the 7th of October. I mean, don't wait until the 7th of October, for God's sake. There's plenty of time. And then the exams, if we take as reference the other linguist competition, they are having exams in June. Your exams should be end of June, beginning of July. There is also the possibility after the summer break. Remember, in the institutions, the summer break usually is mid-July, mid-August, between these two dates. But to be seen, I mean, don't trust everything to, oh, the exam will be in September for sure. I will prepare myself better for June, July. End of June, mid-July, that could be easily the time of the exam. But it's only EPSO who will decide. Also, will depend on the number of applicants. So there are several factors that set the date. I don't think that the date is cast on stone as we speak. But then when the registering period is over, we will see the numbers and we can foresee more or less a more concrete date. Whether if it's before the summer break or right after, it doesn't change much because during the summer break, in principle, yeah, institutions work, but half speed. So not much movement on that part. Then the review of the reasonings, just to establish that those who have passed. Then the eligibility checks, and then the corrections or review of your exams. It will take several months. So that's why we put end 2025, but in a very, very optimistic scenario. I mean, I will go more for end of winter 2026, meaning February, March of next year. So you have to be patient with this competition. In any case, I think the process will be faster than with the old system. Remember that old system used to take literally years. With this case, if it ends in February 2026, it will be more or less 10 months with in the middle the breaks and the summer break, the Christmas break. So not so bad. Could be worse. We have seen worse. So just remain optimistic on this part. Okay. And of course, check the next one. Check the notice. Yeah, I know I mentioned it. I think probably this is the third time I say it today, but guys, man, this is very, very important. Annex one, those are the rules of the game. If you want to complain about your exam, Annex one. If you want to contact EPSO to consult something, Annex one. It's specify the rules. Also, pay attention that you are supposed to check your profile and check the system every few days, because yes, you will get warnings by email, sure, but sometimes it doesn't work properly. Sometimes the email itself, if you're using Gmail or some other private providers, could be that they filter the email as spam and you don't see it. So that's why it's important that you take your own initiative to check regularly your profile, and the communications. All the official communications will go through the single candidate portal. So don't trust the spam emails that appear that making you urgent claims and so on. So on. No, there will be communications that maybe get you to your email, but any official information should go through the single candidate portal. Simple, but requires some attention. Don't leave it for another day. Hope this is clear. And then the test. Right? What happened with the test or the test that you will face? Same as before, we expect it will take place in 2 different days. The division, the split is like we saw you on the screen, in the sense that reasoning and first translation on the first day, translation review on the second day. I mean, all this based on what we have seen the split of times and dates done in previous competitions. Otherwise, we are talking about more than 4 hours, 5 hours of exam, not counting the breaks between exams, because between the reasoning and the fast translation, there will be some split, probably 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. Again, based on what we have seen so far. But until you get official communication, you cannot tell. But for the reasoning test, remember that there is no split. Now it's all in one, so it's 65 intense minutes that you have to deal with the exam. Hope this is clear. And then about the test themselves. So for the reasoning, expect that tough verbal reasoning. Remember that in the last editions and the latest competitions, the verbal reasoning went through an improvement process by EPSO, and it's a bit more difficult than in the past. And there have been some nasty surprises by the candidates that who fail the reasoning because of the verbal reasoning. In your competition, you have the advantage that you only need 20 out of 40, all things combined. But still, don't get overconfident. Try to get as many points as possible on each one of the reasonings. And if one of the reasoning doesn't go as expected, imagine that you do the numerical disaster. I got nervous, the calculator, terrible. Forget it. I mean, the moment you are done with the numerical, you get into the abstract and from the scratch. I'm gonna do it great. Because if you get 10 points in abstract and you get 0 in numerical, but still you get 10 points in verbal, you are in. But if you just depress, you just surrender after doing the numerical, you get 1 in numerical. And because you were depressed and you surrendered for the abstract, you got only 3. And in verbal, you get, let's say, 15, even 15 out of 20, but still 15 plus 4, 19, not enough. But if you take abstract with willingness, you can get 4, 5, 6 points, and that's enough. Again, so be careful with this. Don't get overconfident with verbal. Attention to the numerical. Sometimes you can play chess on the numerical, meaning that sometimes if you don't see yourself capable of doing the 10 exercises in 20 minutes, maybe you can leave aside 1 or 2 exercises. You just reply them randomly, and you focus only on 8. If you get 8 out of 10 numerical, that's an excellent result. You sacrifice 2, fine, but instead I've got 8 points. I only need 12 points more to get through. So be strategic, be smart when doing the reasoning, and don't get nervous. That's the thing that kills you in this exam. As well, feel free to check our channel, YouTube channel, where we have uploaded some exercises, and we're counting to upload maybe a few more in the coming days just to celebrate the 9th of May. So Summon's Day or Europe's Day. So great. Then coming back to the serious business, translation. Let's do translation. The first translation test from language 2 to language 1. The definition is clear from the notice. Translation into language 1 of a legal text drafted in language 2 without the help of a dictionary or other resources. So you are alone with your computer, nothing else. That's it. You will have access to the text on your screen, and you will have the blank page, the draft area, where you will draft the translation. If we take as reference the translator competition, it was possible for them to copy paste the original text, the text to be translated, to post it in the area of the exercise, so they could just work with all of it there. I'm using as a reference the translator competition. In principle, we can assume that this technical feature will be the same for you. So meaning that you got your text and you just can import, copy from the source document to your text. So you can just make it easier to translate phrase by phrase or paragraph by paragraph. Depends on your technique or how you do it. Okay, that's one thing. Most of you will be from French to language one. That shouldn't be a problem. It's important that as you don't have any resource, extra material in which you know well the legal nuances, the legal vocabulary, all these elements, because those are the areas where they will pay special attention, that you know how to translate the legal terms in the sense of capturing the legal essence. So far, our experience tells us that the text, when they say legal text, could be between a text that you, as you see, the one example that is coming from EPSO webpage, that is a essay on a legal aspect, or could be a legal document itself. Some of the regulations, directives, they contain some explanations, some legal elements that, yeah, could be nice for a translation, could be interesting. So be sure that you get familiar with between language 2 and language 1, all the legal terms, the legal equivalents, and so on. Because attention to those particular details will be key. Okay. Also, expect a long text. I mean, based on what we have seen in other competitions and in the examples available, it's 800 words minimum. Let's say around 2 pages. 2 pages, 2 pages, something depends on the format of the document. That's a long thing. That's a long text. So you won't have a lot of time to think about the translation. You will have to go in a rather automatic mode that's just reading, translating, blah, 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 and you will have hopefully 5 minutes to correct, to review at the end. But don't count to have too much time, free time, spare time to decide what to do with it. No, I mean, you will need to rush. And also, just check the episode examples, just to give you some familiarity with the kind of legal knowledge that they're expecting you to get familiar in order to do the translation. Hope this is clear for the translation exercise. I mean, from the perspective of an exercise, it's rather simple, the mechanics. Of course, content-wise, it's going to be tough. This is it. It's a good position in the court. So they have to put a high level to select the right candidates. That hopefully will be you. And then for the second exercise, the translation review. This is an interesting one. This one, when I read the notice, I really like it because of the fact that it's not a pure translation. It's not that you have to type again the whole of it, but you have to review. Something that happens a lot, that now we use automatic translations. Yep, they will offer, as they say, text that has been produced on a machine translation from language 3, whatever is the language, Spanish, English, French. If you're no, sorry, French is impossible as language 3. Now I'm saying so for that. So Spanish, French, German, uh, Swedish. That could be if you're in another competition and it's not Swedish language. You choose the language 3. But then what they will do is that they have the original text, language 3. They go through a machine, they translate it, and you will have to review it because the machine can do a great job translating, but they always miss some nuances, some specific meanings, some specific adaptation of the language. So that's why it's important that you have a strong eye for the detail, that you pay a lot of attention to every word in the text that you will be provided. Expect also a long text. In this sense, is every word, because what we have seen in other competitions is that the details that you are supposed to correct or to review are minimal. I mean, it's difficult to. It's not a big mistake. It's not a big thing. It's a small thing that you have to correct. So be very careful with this. I mean, and also use the e-translate tool. E-translate, what the hell is that? We're asking. The institutions, they have their own translation machine. They have a system that allows them to do the machine translations. It's called eTranslate, and the good news is that it's a free access for all European citizens and small and medium enterprises as well. They have access to it for free. You have to have a ECAS account. You have to identify yourself, but that's it. And that will be your best friend to prepare this part of the competition because that's the tool that is being used by the institutions. So probably that will be the tool that they will use for the translation. It has different settings and different capacities. It's a relatively good machine to translate, but it's not perfect. And then it's what you go through. So you can always take some text that you know that is in your language one and your language three. You run the automatic translation on language three and you just do the corrections. And then you can compare it with the language one, what you got. So remember that in the European Union, the documents, the available documents are in the all official languages are plenty. So you can use them as a reference for practicing both translations. It's very simple, but requires some effort, of course. So to tackle this test, some materials and some ideas. Don't forget to check the translation guidelines and resources provided by the institutions. These are material that mostly more generic, not only focus on legal, but it can give you some ideas, especially for some terms and for some notions. The interinstitutional style guide that affects legal documents. So be sure that you're familiar with it. Read it to get the logic of the language, in the sense not purely only legal aspect, but also the institutions, they have their own language. So be sure that you get familiar with it. And of course, with all legal documents from the institution, like the EU law, your lex, well, you can have access to them. And last but not least, the e-translation tool. It will be helpful for you to practice, as I mentioned before. Hope this was clear. I mean, the good news is that this competition is relatively simple in the procedures, in the mechanic of the process. Of course, it has the difficulty of the deep knowledge of the language and the law, so not open to many candidates. In that sense, not many of you will have both elements, the language and the legal knowledge, but hopefully all of you who are watching this video, yes, it's the case. So you're finding this useful. And then just as a reminder, remember that if you need help from YaSemoseuropeos, we have our trainings for the reasoning test, for the writing parts, for the translations, and we will probably offer some materials as well to prepare the different tests of this competition. And don't forget to follow us on social media and give it to like. You know, the algorithm always demands some likes to what we do, so you can get it, keep getting more. Just remember that we want you in the European institutions. We want you to work in Brussels, or in this case, Luxembourg, as the court is Luxembourg, for the European Union, for the European project. But now I guess that this is your turn. I don't know if there is any question or any comment.
Can we ask a question orally?
Uh, I'm
Or
generous. You can even ask two. Of course, you
yeah,
can ask what you want. Don't worry.
I see that in the for the French one, like when I read the criteria in French, it's actually asking for um 5 years. Uh, and I have like a bachelor in French law and a master, and my other master I did a LLM abroad, um in entirely in English. So my question is, am I eligible? Because
Oh,
here
this,
I can see in French, I can see they say,
combien de temps en formation juridique de 5 années,
mais
300 crédits. That's
But
Hmm.
I also have my French bar exam, so maybe that could count as well.
That should,
The
because I
training.
guess
Yeah.
for the bar exam in France, you will need this 300 credits in any case, so that should be it. I'm not so familiar with the reform of 2004 in the French system, so that's why I'm not there to talk much about it. But yeah, as they say, pour le diplôme, pour tenir plein de uh, well, second pour le diplôme obtenu en America, c'est même très fort. So you need to follow those criteria, but yeah, I mean, I guess that you have the 5 years studies. So that's a bit, although it's a bit tricky because in the rest of the notice, it's true that they mention 4 years, but here concretely, the studies to access to them and to get what they ask is 5 years. So sorry for not pointing out more clearly before.
Okay. But for in your opinion, my training in the bar school should also count.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Especially, just check that the bar school what you got is ETCS credits, official credits. So that's make things very easy to prove and give evidence of your studies.
I'm not sure it has this credit system, but I will check.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
maybe another question I have is what about the timeline of this competition?
Yeah, for the timeline, as I showed you before, yeah, the thing is that 28th of May, delivery noon to submit your application. That's certain. 7th of October, that's certain as well as limit to upload your documents. But in the meantime, our bet, educated guess, based on what we know from other competitions, is that your exam could perfectly be before the summer break, meaning very end of June, first half of July. That could be it. But then it will take a lot of time to correct your exams unless there's very few candidates, because the whole process of it, this eligibility checks after the reasoning and then the correction of all the first translations, that demands time, and there are not so many people doing the corrections and doing the check-ins. So that's why when we say end of 2025, probably that will be what they would like. But honestly, the moment, if in total there are more than 2,000 candidates in the eight competitions, adding the eight competitions, I will go for estimation of end of winter, February, March of 2026 for getting the results.
Thanks. Sorry I missed this
No
slide.
worries. No worries. Okay, let me see on the chat. I see. I have two questions. If we don't currently meet the requirements, can I still take the CBT in June, July? Yes, provided that you are getting your degree in October, by 1st of October. That's perfectly fine. If the case is that you are maybe joining the competition just to check how the process goes, but you're not a real candidate, if that's the case, you're still invited according to the system. So because they will check your ability after taking the exam, meaning that you will get expelled from the competition afterwards, but that's it. So not big deal. We know that there are candidates who do that. Not a big deal. So when we can expect the results of the CBT, as I mentioned before, the results will come all at the end of the competition, all together, unless the notice says otherwise. And I don't think I miss it, but just in case. So you will get the results at the very end of the competition. This is part of the new process. There's no midterm results, so you need to be patient. Okay, I go for the next question on the chat. Do you know, based on the similar competition, eventually the reserve list may be opening also beyond the court? Another institution may select candidates from the list. I would say yes and no. Based on our experience, yes, not reserve lists are open to other institutions, absolutely. But, and that's the no part. Also, we know by experience that when the court has a reserve list that is for them, they tend to keep it closed for a long time. So we have known candidates who have taken many years until the reserve list got open. because this is a very specific profile. They need a very specific knowledge. So the court is usually not willing to open the reserve list to other institutions. There are always exceptions. There's always, in the interest of service, justification to recruit someone from the reserve list like this from the court. But please don't apply to this competition just thinking that you will get the opportunity to apply to any other institution in 1 year time because everything will be free. No, I think that it's going to be a bit restricted. It will take a bit more time, at least what we know based on our experience. I continue with the questions on the chat. Which language is better to use to submit the application? The first language of the competition? Feel free, you are entitled to use any language. Personally, I will tend to use either English or French. Italian and Spanish as well because they are quite common. In the case of the Italian competition, I think it makes sense as well. But the problem is that when you use less common language, the reviewers of the eligibility criteria not necessarily are experts in that language or natives on that language. So it makes things a bit more lengthy. It delays the whole process because they need to translate the information in order to assess your reliability. That's why what personally I will do is to select a language that it's common in the institution. So English, French, Italian, and Spanish is true that they are quite common not only by the number of speakers, native speakers, but also because these are two languages that are quite popular. So spoken by many others who are not native speakers. For other languages, it can be tricky, but still, it's your perfect right. And if you think that it's better to do it in your own language, do it. So, but if you can choose, I will go for a working language of the European institutions to make life easier to everyone, and also so you get familiar with all this stuff. Okay, I'm reading another question. I also have a question on the translation test. You mentioned that the tests are quite long. In your opinion, it's better to focus on the quality of the translation or translating on translating the full text. Oh, I will in both. I mean, practice in order to do both. Good quality on the whole text, because you can be severely penalized if your text is not complete or the quality is not good. That I prefer to sacrifice 5 lines out of 100 lines because my quality is excellent rather than doing these 5 lines and the quality is poor in the whole text. Well, in that case, probably the quality will wait a bit more, but I cannot confirm that. I will depends on the board, the text that they decide to put as exam for you, and they will see if they set as a criteria that the candidates must absolutely finalize in the time allocated, or they can be only partially penalized and focus more on the quality. This is a criteria that is decided by the board for or its competition. So personally, I will train myself to finalize and to offer always the highest quality. I will play safe on that because if I already start preparing myself thinking, oh no, I mean I will focus on quality rather than finalizing the text, you can get a nasty surprise. So prepare for the maximum, prepare for everything. Only if the day of the exam the worst happen and you cannot finalize, well, you will have to choose. But when preparing yourself, never prepare according to this scenario. It's like in you say they say in football, right? If you go to play even and to get a same score 0-0, probably you will be defeated in the match. But if you go there to win, yeah, you can be defeated, but chances of winning are better because your mentality is okay. I want to win. I want to do it everything. But if you go there, I know I don't want just not to do everything. mm, There are nasty surprises later. So try to prepare for both aspects. Which language is better to use? No, sorry, I already answered that one. What impact will have the part to fill experience and background? According to the notice, none. In the sense that if you got the academic background required, that's fine. It's the only thing that once you have passed, they may get access to your application to see your records or your experience, but still in the selection process that you participate when you are in a reserve list, you can always submit an updated fresh CV with all the information. So for this competition and the way it's done, shouldn't be a big problem, provided that your studies and your academic background is clear. When things get complicated, maybe it's better to provide a bit more information so they can understand what is your situation, what is your role, what is your all the data that you're providing. But if you fulfill the criteria and it's crystal clear on a few pieces of information, that's it. Don't overcomplicate it. There's not a big advantage here in providing more information. Okay, I think this is it. I don't know if you have any other question or comment. Mhm. So far, so good. In any case, remember that our channels remain open. And we will keep you informed through our social media, through our WhatsApp and Telegram channels. So, and also, you will find this webinar and the presentation uploaded soon in our YouTube channel and in our blog. So, thank you everyone for participating today on this webinar, and we'll stay in touch. See you soon.
Thank you,
Bye.
Inigo.
Thank you.